shall come to order for the purposes of hearing three appointments and a continuation of three bills. In accordance with the open government law, notices of this hearing were sent to all main media outlets, all senators and stakeholders 5 days in advance on February 23rd, and a second notice was sent on February 26, 2015. I'd like to welcome and thank Senator Frank Guggen Jr. for being here. I'd like to welcome and thank all of you for being here for these confirmation hearings, as well as the three bills. Whatever your interests are, you're very welcome to come forward and express those interests of the committee. I'd like to also recognize Senators Frank Blas Jr. and Senator Tommy Morrison. At this time, I'd like to call upon those individuals who signed up to testify on the appointment of Maria Connelley to serve as Director, Department of Labor, for a length of term to serve at the pleasure of the Governor, and we hope that it will be his pleasure that she serves there for the remaining 4 years. The next appointment is Gregory Perez to serve as a member of the Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Authority, as well as Ann Roth to serve as a member of the Guam Environmental Protection Agency Board of Directors. And Mr. Perez's term, if confirmed, would be for 5 years, and Ms. Roth's term would be for another 3 years. So, can I see the sign-up sheet? For Director Connelley. Thanks. Okay. Those who signed up to testify, I'd like to call Mr. Greg Massey, Antonia Santos. Oh, just for support. Okay. You can, yeah, sure. You're a pro at this, so come. I actually was going to get those who wanted to testify, but go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead. No, of course, you're there. And I'd like to welcome Senator Torres and thank her for being here. Okay, so there's a few that signed up just to express support. Joseph Salas, Annie Salas. I can't read this writing. For Santos? Is this okay. And Joshua Walsh. Well, let's have you. Let's have this panel first, and then we'll hear from you, and then we'll hear from the director. Okay. So I'd like to ask Greg Massey to begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning, Senators. My name is Greg Massey. I'm an administrator at the Department of Labor, and I'm pleased to come before you today and testify in support of Maria Connelley as the Director of Labor. It's been my pleasure to work with the department since 1990, and I've seen many directors come and go. I would like to say that I've worked with Director Connelley for several years in previous administration, and I'm glad to be the first to testify and say this is the right person for the job. You know, she's qualified and definitely qualified, and we've seen since she's been appointed a renewed drive in the department that hasn't been there for several years. All due respect to other directors, but I think this is the right person that we need to have going into the build-up. I just wanted to give short oral testimony. I've got a training I've got people waiting. Thank you for putting me first. But I couldn't let today go by without at least coming in and giving some testimony.
Okay, thank you. Senators, do you have any questions or follow-up for Mr. Massey? If not, the committee thanks you for your participation and excuses you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. How do you want to... Director, I want you to have the final panel. So can I invite the two other individuals? I'm sorry. Yeah, only because of how this thing is structured. Yeah, thank you. I'd like to call up the last two individuals who signed up to provide testimony: Attorney Walsh and Senator Samabini, former Senator Samabini. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to provide some testimony? Okay, the two of you.
Senator, I actually said I didn't do a written testimony, but I actually
Where?
prefer to change that to a oral testimony.
Okay, Rose?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, come forward. Okay. Anybody else going to testify regarding the appointment of director? Okay. So we'll begin with you, Attorney Walsh.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, members of this panel. My name is Joshua Walsh. I'm an attorney, and I'm here on behalf of the more than 150 displaced workers from the Guam shipyard that were terminated on October 14 of 2013. I'm an attorney working with a team that's representing these displaced workers in a proposed class action lawsuit that's currently in the District Court of Guam. And I'm here simply to offer some thoughts for your consideration as you undertake your duties to provide your advice and consent on this nomination. I want to first say that I have great respect for the Governor of Guam, and I also want to say that I have great respect for the executive generally, and the idea that an executive should be able to surround himself or herself with a team of directors that executive is comfortable with. But I do have concerns about this appointment because those displaced workers have concerns about this appointment, and I wanted to make sure that I raised those before you this morning. Just a little bit of brief history for those of you who are not aware. On October 14, 2014, the Guam shipyard, without notice or warning, terminated more than 150 workers from the Guam shipyard. Many of these men and women were workers who worked there since before the BRAC hearings, when it was the original ship repair facility. These workers were summoned in the morning, told to pack their bags, clean their lockers, and leave. Now, it's the United States of America. It is the territory of Guam. I'm an at-will employee. My employer can fire me at any moment. We certainly know that. But what Congress did in passing the Worker Adjustment and Training Act, the WARN Act, Congress said you can't do that when you have a mass termination. If you're going to fire that many people, you have to provide warning. So there's litigation ongoing about that, and I would just like to encourage you to weigh that as you provide your advice and consent on this. The WARN Act says you had to give a 6-month warning process, and that didn't occur here. And because of that, these workers had no notice, couldn't prepare. I think the Department of Labor had to get its apparatus going to deal with displaced workers and emergency funding. Many of these workers have lost their homes, there have been foreclosures, family stresses. That's why the litigation is ongoing. And I think that's why Congress passed the WARN Act. Now, the Guam shipyard has taken a position in that case that the WARN Act does not apply on Guam. That is a position that is contrary to what the United States Department of Labor has said and what the Department of Labor website itself says. So I think this body should try to gain some clarity as to whether or not the WARN Act applies before granting this, especially if we're keeping an eye toward future federal jobs and future contracting issues and potentials for mass layoffs. This is 150 families that were impacted by this. I think also troubling about what occurred during that non-notice termination was the fact that there were H-2 workers who were not terminated, who were kept in their positions while Guam workers were terminated. I think the Department of Labor had an investigation about that. I wasn't part of that, but just one more thing I think for your consideration, one more thing for your analysis as you weigh these issues. I just like to conclude just by saying directly, I don't know Mrs. Connelley. We have not had an opportunity to meet. The litigation is ongoing. There will be depositions, I'm sure, at some point in the future as Judge Gatewood and Judge Manabusin work our way through that litigation. All I wanted to do is, the Guam legislature has a pretty serious role here. You are not a rubber stamp, obviously. And I just thought that it would be best for this body to understand that at least with regard to the 150 Guam workers who were terminated in what we think was a violation of a federal statute and were terminated despite the fact that H-2 workers were held onto, I think those raise some serious questions that I think I'd encourage you to investigate a little bit as you do this deliberative process. So unless Mr. Chair or anybody else here has any direct questions for me, I'll leave it at that and thank you for your time and your consideration.
Okay, and are you available to stay back in case there are follow-up questions?
I will stay here and do that. I've also left my contact information in case anybody has any questions.
Because you've raised issues that gives the nominee an opportunity to respond. She may respond or she may choose not to respond.
Understood.
But there certainly may be some follow-up questions. I certainly have some questions as well.
Okay, sure. I think the only thing I'd like to say is I will, of course, answer anything that I can. I'm governed by several things. One, of course, is my confidence and privilege with my clients. And the second thing, of course, is Mrs. Connelley. I think she was the executive vice president at the Guam shipyard. I'm not sure that her counsel would like to be involved or would like me to ask. I mean, I will answer your questions, but obviously I don't want to have any interaction with somebody who may be represented in a civil case before the district court.
Good, I'm glad you said that because this may or may not be the forum to air those concerns, and I want to make sure that we don't have a back and forth debate, because when we look at a nominee that's being brought forth from the executive branch, for me, I look at that person in totality. And so if some people express some concerns in some area, I'd give that nominee an opportunity to address it, but then there are other overriding concerns that may warrant that the confirmation process moves forward. So I invite you to continue to participate and help us iron those things out.
Thank you, sir.
But thank you for being very respectful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. As a courtesy to our colleague here, and congratulations on your appointment to be the director of AHRD. We received your confirmation packet, and I referred it to my committee, of course, because I have oversight over AHRD, and we would be working to schedule your confirmation hearing as well. And I told Senator Mabini that had we received the packet just one day before she received the word from the governor, we would have been hearing her nomination as well. So it's nothing that we wanted to hear Director Connelley's first before Senator Mabini's, but we wanted to actually do this together. So I'll recognize you at this time, and I understand you have some testimony.
Yes. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Senators. Thank you for having us this morning to testify on behalf of Director Maria Connelley, Acting Director Maria Connelley. I'm Sam Mabini, and I am the Acting Director for the Agency for Human Resource Development, just recently appointed. And I'm here today to express my full support for Ms. Maria Connelley and her appointment as the Director for Department of Labor. For those of you who may not know, in the previous administrations, 2 or 3 ago, that we had worked together side by side as directors serving the previous administration in her capacity as well at Department of Labor. And it's then, and actually even now, that, and also, by the way, we also had served on the board at one time for the HRD Workforce Investment Board, and it was during all those times that it's been clear to me that she's very knowledgeable in ensuring that we protect, that we support our job seekers, our wage earners, our retirees, our vets. This prior knowledge I believe is extremely important as we move forward with your vision as our legislators and a vision of our administrators, our executive branch as well. And this prior experience, I feel, is imperative considering that a new act has been implemented. It's been 25 years since the act was written in 1998, 1999, and having the prior experience that Maria brings to the table is critical to help continue on the agenda. I also believe she has the professional experience to carry out this role, both because of her role in the public arena, but also in the private arena. I believe and have the utmost confidence that she has the skills, and of course she has. And for me, having had been appointed recently as the acting director for HRD, that one of the key skills that I believe she has is the ability to collaborate, work as a team with not just me but the other directors of this administration, which is imperative and required of the new agenda of the Congressional Act. So again, that's basically the gist of my testimony. I fully support her appointment, and I ask that the senators also condone that support. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I'd like to recognize Senator Spaldon. Thank you for being here. Okay, would you like to go, Roth?
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman, and all the senators that are here. I'm
Rose Azuzu Morales, and I'm actually with GTA. I'm their Vice President of Human Resources, but I also sit on the Guam Workforce Investment Board. And I don't know Maria Connelley personally, but in the short time sitting on the GWIP board since she's become a director, I definitely support the appointment because the agency struggled for a while in meeting federal funding and federal requirements, and in the short time that Acting Director Connelley has been in her position, we've made huge strides as an agency in meeting federal requirements so that we don't lose federal funding for the island of Guam. And for me, results speak volumes in helping, the island of Guam and those that are out there looking for employment, as well as, bridging the gap between the employers and people that are looking for employment. So I am in support of her appointment, and again, look forward to the collaboration with her and the moving the agency forward with ensuring that we don't lose any funding.
Okay, thank you. And you said that you've submitted written testimony?
No, I was going to submit.
Okay, but you would like to make this?
Right.
Okay, thank you. No, the camera can move and... Sergeant at Arms, can you please make sure that the thing is framed properly?
Can you please make... Thank you.
Wait, let's make sure you're on TV.
Hit the beer. That's it.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
Hagåtña.
Buenos dias, Senators. My name is Catalina. I have to emphasize my middle name. Titano Cruz. I am here today to provide Maria Connelley my full support. Now, apparently, all the speakers have said a lot of the stuff I wanted to say, but I want to bring up to your attention, we are being faced with the military buildup, and also our economy, it may be up to par, but we still need to develop the industries. Now, with the military buildup, support that, definitely. And I want to say that during our first build-up, Maria Connelley was our director. And she was she was extremely great with getting the Industry Forum 1, 2, and 3. I'm very sure all of you remembered that. And we worked hard. We had so many employers come in, and we had so many jobs that were supposedly to have happened. And this is why I'm here. I would like to make sure that the person that has the experience, that have seen the military build up, even with Mark Caldwell, who continues to take us, and I'll use the word, the right direction. And I'm not a Republican nor a Democrat, but you know what? This is for our people, our children. I see we have a lot of problems with our Department of Education. Now, I'm looking at the military build-up for that. Why is it that I'm barking? I'm barking because I sit behind the desk. I am an employment program administrator, and all of you know what that is. Now, I see a lot of our kids that are exiting out of high school and cannot even remember their surnames. Now, I need for all of you to really take this seriously, because this is one woman, and it's not because she's pretty or whatever, but she was a great leader during those times. And I want to see that we continue that. Let's not go back and start all over. There was a lot of good things that had happened during those industry forums. I practically know all of you, and the thing about it is there's always something in your characters that drives me to make this kind of speech, and I want to make sure I'm on TV. The second thing about Maria is, and I hope this is not an insult to her, she's my boss.
Okay, then we'll stop here. No, go ahead.
But Maria, although people talk about her no college, but tumtum. Now I want to use that word in Chamorro, tumtum. My grandfather used to say, college, no knowledge. But this is one woman that uses her ability to do the work and see it through. Now, like I said, let's take the right direction. And I'll tell you something, that is not only because of this administration, that even the federal will tell us we're taking the right direction. Now, I'm emphasizing those words because all of you are not only well educated, but are feeling the pain, I'm very sure. I'm looking at all of you, and I know you're feeling the pain. Now, I would like to devote a little of my time as an administrator. I came in, I have been with the department 36 years. I have administered practically all the divisions there. And I know that a lot of you, like Senator Rory, Senator Frank, our new Senator Blas, Senator Morrison, who I worked with the mother for the longest time at Territorial Crime Commission. All of you know where I'm coming from. And I want to make sure that this time, put favor, we've seen too many directors. It's time that we look at, and Senator Mabini here, I see a lot of promises and I see a lot of things that are working. And I'd like for you to really give it a very close consideration. As for any other issues about Department of Labor, I'll yield that to Maria and Sam Mabini, Dr. Sam Mabini. Thank you. Si Diyos Masi, maraming salamat. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your 36 years of service.
Yeah.
And 36 more, right?
Like I tell all the directors that get on my case, sorry, sir, I'm going to be here another 100 years.
You're right.
You're leaving. So,
and
thank you.
And we'll be sure to get you a copy, a DVD copy
make
of
sure
your
that
testimony.
you get my face there.
Okay.
Who knows, I
Thank
might
you.
run for senator when I retire.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Any questions, senators from this panel? If not, Senator Hagen.
First of all, ladies, thank you very much for your testimony this morning. Lo, Ms. Cruz, go ba faisin sa
Tato ba faisin?
ay sa Ms. Chamorro imatsu pago so kosinyo finu Chamorro didi.
Tori tempo from no Chamorro.
Ay para si
O pa si
para nominee
Maria.
na.
Malago na besangani si Diyos Masi. Hafa malago mo. Sa Nikwentuso na Palawan. Ito nalik niya si Philip Flores. Ngayon na run pa senator. Kuna ganado. Ayagon, dispensa. Malago dyan na besangani. Ikwa Sam. Okay. Malago na besangani am dyan na dos ang si Maria, si Diyos Masi. Gobyerno maulik ibidada niya. Bulat di humonggi. Logwahu wa atan ni Edzi Zoku grandchildren. Hamzo na dos. Apet hagulokil Maria. At manit di man masakpit. An at manit di man matsotso. Besanganya hamzo na dos. Na bisaga 100 years talo Department of Labor. Departmentun humot not. Lo ni zata tsuli si na mensahi. Zata ajuda isinidot. Sa tisinya hit man masuk baulik jasta nafan maulikit mo na anti manihita gi bandwagon. Po lo I makule humog I umbanda jan isa itemtum. Ang gintintingo afano kumekelek niya agano gi setso jabe sanganyam jo. Lo nihi zata ajuda sa timaulik hinananauta itano. Jabulay ifamagonta tanapanahano man skwela. An man matutati tanota taja masasodat ni po fanamauling itano. Dilale ko taja bidan nijo. Edi kumekele ko I kada man mamatiam gi sampapa man matsotso. Pers bendi itsetso mami. Sa bulala tiningo utaw to ocho banda siya. Ni man malago manano magi pamaajuda itano. Pamaajuda Guam. Basta hit man atan put klasi, basta hit man atan put kulot. Mala jata atan jata panajuda. Uno hapa begagam jut pago ni jata atan na jibort. Sa ibort, igwip. ihiningget ko na Debbie na ti para government of Guam employees sa Zoom. Kani itawtawhid Zoom gi private sector. Tutungulay Zoom gifunot tomorrow.
Jesus Masi, Miss Cruz.
Lo tatapana azuda. Sa janggim para kada gwaha patatso gi maulik zaman kahuluhit gini gi announcement elekta. Gwaha problema spiambi problema mo jo on spiadzon fa maulik. Sa nagi man mafanagin mami. Todo dusin man mafanagwi. Tataza gi ulo gi senators tutungo sa todo dui man nanania manhami man matso. Con todo si Senator Mary. Sinya si Senator Mary tahaso lo. Wasa si Senator Mary anay ijon niya grandfather no si Carlos Parago.
Ay, totoo si Carlos.
Tatamo no. Bisakta na nila. Lo tatag ba?
Sa senyora o comprendió.
Lo guida punene na nagubet no na matatsungo government of Guam. Pes be since taon sa ngani bekantos Guam maatado dik niya mano na mag-graduate daw like MDTA SITA program. Lo educate komoni u ja matwotsu for the longest time matwotsu ni ja malumu ja sigyo ha anay ja stanu ja educate mana dongkulu ja sinyam sa manasad gilong ututun as a general helper ja siga u matwotsu esta pago administrator ho malagaw o director lo mungasa.
Jesus
Masi, Maria, and Sam, and please, we need for to stabilize our department. Really, no more getting that governor to come and change, because every time they change, we have to sit back again, and we have to say, where do we go from here? And it's been how many years now? It's been 4 years. So I'm speaking English because I have to switch. Now, I'm begging the two of you to please work together and let's not see any more of crisis. Thank you. Si Diyos Masi Senators.
Jesus Masi, Miss Cruz. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, si Diyos Masi. Okay, thank you. The last individual who signed up to testify on the appointment of Maria Connelley before I call the nominee up is Mr. J. Merrill. Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to submit or provide testimony? Oh, Mr. Perez, yeah. No, you can just go ahead. I'll write your name in. Okay. Okay, so after these two individuals, I will call up the nominee just so she knows to be ready. Okay, Mr. Merrill.
Someone that I can say without any reservation is not only prepared, but is without question the best person to be at this critically important time in our history, in a very extremely essential position to ensure that the people of Guam maximize the benefits associated with the economic growth that's coming. Maria is not only a good leader, but she has the vision that's necessary to help transform not only our existing labor challenges, but those facing the region into something that can be not only an achievement that all of us would be proud of, but one that will yield results that we will all see in the short as well as the long term. Maria has put together a regional strategy for workforce development that she has successfully convinced all of the leaders of the surrounding islands to take seriously, and is currently under the process of review for final implementation. She's established an understanding of how to approach the private sector to increase their participation with the Department of Labor, and is actively involved in programs and activities to ensure that there's greater involvement of businesses in the process of helping to prepare our workforce. She understands the intricacies and importance of human resources because of her background, and understands the necessity for the proper match between the individual and the position. There frankly has never been, in my mind, a better candidate for a job of this type than Maria. So I won't take up too much of your time, but I sincerely hope that you recognize that this is an opportunity that we cannot let slip by. If we fail now to put the right person in the right position, we will be harming our economy, and we're going to be harming our own future. And I want to say thank you for the opportunity to say my piece.
Thank you. Have you conducted a survey?
Yes, we have.
And the survey says?
Absolutely unanimous.
Okay. It's good enough for me. Mr. Perez?
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee. I'm Greg Perez from Tamuning, and I'm here to wholeheartedly support the appointment and confirmation of Ms. Connelley to Department of Labor. I worked with her there as a member of the GWIB, Guam Workforce Investment Board. Also worked with her prior to that as a board member at Guam Community College, and then prior to that in the private sector. I find her to be knowledgeable, aggressive, dedicated, and committed to accomplishing the goals of whatever her assignments are. She's self-taught, self-educated, experienced, and very willing to do her share for the benefit of everybody. And so again, I'm here to testify in her support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perez, and thank you for your participation. You're here as a nominee yourself, and we'll be hearing your nomination afterwards. Senators, any questions? Okay, thank you for your participation. Okay, there's no one else that signed up regarding the appointment of Ms. Connelley, so I invite the nominee up at this time. Okay. Ms. Connelley, you're recognized.
My name is Maria Connelley, Acting Director of the Guam Department of Labor. I submitted my letter. I would like to read it. Dear Chairman Respicio, thank you for inviting me to appear and provide testimony before the committee on my appointment as Director of the Guam Department of Labor. Guam's workforce continues to evolve, and with it comes the challenge of being responsive. The commitment to the workforce investment system by local business and elected leaders is fundamental to the continuing development of Guam's workforce needs. The Workforce Investment Act allows Guam's workforce development partners to consolidate and streamline a uniform service while using shared resources, goals, data systems, and methods of program evaluation. Imagine Guam, which is a classroom to career program, develop the latest youth educational initiative and hire local, redefine Guam's human capital, and embrace new directions to ensure quality jobs. It's a commitment to investing in a strong, highly trained, and skilled local workforce, which will ultimately lead to a healthy and prosperous island economy. Therefore, a flexible and innovative workforce development approach recognizes the value placed on a well-educated and well-trained workforce. The following goals represent transitioning and priorities set forth to fulfill Governor Cowell's vision and implementation of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. First, increase employment and skill levels by implementing effective strategies that deliver high-quality services to employers and those seeking employment. Second, provide useful and timely data and reports on economic and workforce development. Third, provide an effective and integrated workforce learning continuum or system to promote lifelong learning and align regional economies, linking the Guam Department of Education, the Guam Department of Labor, the Guam Community College, and the University of Guam. Next, increase economic opportunities for Guam residents through partnership, collaboration with businesses, federal government, and non-government organization entities. Last, provide the people of Guam a workforce investment system that is easy to access, navigate, and assess. With the staff, and you've met Ms. Catalina Cruz and actually all of the administrators, and I want to thank them for coming, in the department, and collaborative support from government partners, stakeholders, businesses, and NGOs, I look forward to realizing Governor Calvo's vision that calls for creating a flexible and innovative Guamanian workforce and building a strong community foundation that has a sustainable workforce capability that is highly competitive, flexible, and innovative to benefit Guamanians. Sidus Masi.
Situs Masi. I first would invite any senators to ask questions or make general comments. Senator Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Ms. Connelley, thank you very much for extending yourself based on the request and the nomination of Governor Calvo to serve as Director of the Department of Labor. I think it's been mentioned by a few of the testimonies this morning that it's a very critical time to have an individual sit in that particular position in light of the impending military buildup. So as the chair of that particular aspect, I'd like to ask you what your plans are in regards to developing our workforce so that it can meet the demands of not only the build-up as it applies to the actual build-up / construction activities, but following that component. Because your testimony highlights from a macro perspective what you would like to see and how Governor Calvo wants to proceed in terms of taking the department. But I'd like to hear from you in terms of what your plans are for the immediate 3, 4, 5 years to be able to develop the workforce so that we can meet the requirements of the build-up and not overly rely on H2 workers or foreign workers to come in and provide the much-needed employment.
One of the reasons I returned to the Department of Labor was because there was a plan that was actually the basic foundation that built the Workforce Investment Act, and there was a strategic plan that was developed in 2004. The Guam Workforce Board updated the plan, and the strategic plan for 2012 to 2016. And basically, that's the plan that I'm currently following and implementing those plans. And the plan in itself, as Jay Mero had mentioned, is that it really requires the Guam Workforce Board being a representative, and Catalina mentioned being a representative from the private sector. So these members of the private sector put together a plan to meet the needs of Guam looking 5 years forward. It requires the collaboration working with the businesses. It requires the collaboration working with the education community. Governor Calvo called his plan I believe the Imagine Guam, which is the classroom to career. The overarching strategy of the lifelong learning in reaching out to the Guam Department of Education and bringing in the high school students and connecting them into the workplace, following them, and as far as the classroom to careers, allows them to come in from the 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, so they were able to work during summer, Easter break, and summer and spring, and continuing that person's education and aligning them to employers so that if they are in a track, for example, for a construction trades track, then they can go to the community college or the University of Guam, or if it's an allied health track, they can go to GCC or UOG. All those, as far as the classroom to career, it's not new. It's been in there, and the agency has been following the plan, and right now it's continuously directing to make sure that we are involving our private sector, including the other partners of the government that are actually receiving federal funding for workforce development.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your response, because obviously with the build-up, at least for the first 4 or 5 years, we'll be needing H2 workers, so I'm not dismissing that requirement. I think a lot of it, we graduated, a discussion last week or 2 weeks ago was that on an annual basis, we graduate anywhere from 18 to 1900 high school graduates in our public school system. And that's so inclusive of our private school graduates. Obviously, there will be a lot of individuals who, if they're not pursuing higher education through UOG, GCC, or off-island, will need to seek employment within the very near future. So I certainly hope that your Classroom to Careers project program will be able to perhaps bring it to the next level,
And
so
the
that
next
once a
level-
record of decision is released, then we'll be able to join the two in terms of making sure that we prepare the workforce so that they can contribute to this military buildup.
And that next level is from high school, they can either go into a pre-apprenticeship program or a registered apprenticeship program. And again, in returning, I was really very, very pleased to see that there are at least 519 apprentices and about 68 employers that are actually engaged in registered apprenticeship program. And this is something that I've never seen before. And again, with the employers, and of course the legislature recently extended the Guam Registered Apprenticeship Program tax incentive for the GRT. It's encouraging private sector employers to hire people through the apprenticeship program, or including encouraging their current workers, incumbent workers, to register and be able to attain their certificate from the Guam Community College as graduate apprentices.
Thank you, Ms. Connelley. We look forward to your department's tremendous contribution over the course of the build-up and also to take care of our workforce. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Senator Blas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to Maria, I think I have the privilege of being able to call you that, since you've known me longer than I've been alive, quite honestly, right? What, Auntie Maria, have you seen, or what do you anticipate to be your biggest challenge in being able to accomplish many of the goals that you have set, or many of the targets that you want to hit?
You may call it a challenge, but I'm sure that it's bringing all the government agencies that are receiving different federal funding from different federal agencies. I don't want to call it a challenge. I want to call it that it's an achievable one. Right now, all the funding that's coming in from the U.S. Department of Labor, different funding like your Senior Citizens Program and your Disabled Veterans Program, your core products, we managed to pull all of those together. And that's how we were able to establish an integrated workforce 5-year strategic plan. The federal government has been, since 2000, has been really trying to get all the federal government together. The WIOA, which is to be effective, I believe, July of this year, is pushing further to have all those government agencies that are receiving funding from the U.S. Department of Education, for example, the Carl Perkins that goes to the community college, the DISIT DVR they get to help people with disabilities, and also funding that's coming from the Health and Human Services. So we have been, when I say we, it's not just me, the director, but the administrators, and including the Workforce Board, we have been meeting with the partners because they are called mandatory partners. So it's really working with the administrators who are responsible for running these programs and working with them to let them see that we should share our resources, and by consolidating and working together to serve the same community, meaning to serve the underserved, the unemployed, that if we pool our resources together, we'll be able to achieve and do much, much better in getting that person into employment. The Department of Labor once upon a time had what you call a one-stop career center. Well, the federal government changed its name and it's now called the American Job Center. The American Job Center is where employers can go and applicants can go and apply for jobs. So the Guam Department of Labor receives federal funding, and Catalina is in charge of that federal funding, which is the Wagner-Pizer, or the Guam Employment Service Office. And her job is to help private sector employers advertise and at the same time assist applicants and try to match the applicants with those jobs. We average about 3,000 vacancies a year. As a matter of fact, I was looking at the latest vacancy announcement, and I was really shocked because a lot of people think that the only job we advertise at the Department of Labor are for your, entry-level work, for your working at the hotel and minimum wage. But no, there's an employer who's recruiting for an engineer and paying $90,000 a year. And there are other employers, and these are employers who are here because of the buildup, So with 3,000 jobs, vacancies a year we average, imagine if public health, if DISIT, if GURA, and all the other government agencies who are given money to use and develop this person and train this person, and the ultimate performance or the ultimate goal is to get that person into an unsubsidized employment, into a job so that they'll be self-sustaining. So that to me would be not a challenge, but a task that I hope I will be able to put together, let them see what it is that we need to do and work together so that we all achieve, because they're also being measured by the federal government. There's a performance outcome, and their performance outcome is unsubsidized employment. I believe we are getting there. I believe the director of DVR, the director of public health, the director of GURA, and including the director of labor, and so as the president of the community college and the university, they've been very, very positive. And again, it's just continuously massaging it until a person who, the administrator of public health or the administrator at HRD or the administrator of labor, sees that we're not competitors. We really should be working together, and the word now is people don't go for core and intensive services. They go to the American Job Center or the One Stop to get a job and a career. We are there to help them with the career strategies.
Okay, so then the follow-up question to this is, what excites you about wanting to be the director of Department of Labor?
I've been a public servant for 50 years, and I feel God has blessed me with my health and the desire to continue helping. And it makes me feel good when I see a person who, go to the store and they come up and says, thank you very much. Listening to Catalina, here's this lady who came from the MDTA program, and look at where she's at. And what I'm saying, many of the employees at the Department of Labor, HRD, they've gone through that, meaning people have come to them looking for employment, and we help them. We give them that, we give them that support, and we align them, and we work with them, and it just doesn't stop there. It's really following up to make sure that they get a secure employment, and
Thank you, ma'am.
Senator Morrison.
Good morning, Ms. Connelley.
Good morning.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that response. It really struck a nerve, and I think it resonated with many folks out there that are looking for opportunities. I just want to say I appreciate working with you while I was up at DPW, the Contractors Licensing Board, and the work that you've done with your investigation arm at DOL, allowing them to collaborate with the investigation unit at Contractors Licensing Board. As you recall, we were able to really restore the confidence in the construction industry. A lot of contractors were out there providing these complaints and to assist in what was taking place in the industry. And I'm not sure where that is today, but I want to publicly thank you for the work that you've sent our way with your investigation arm to ensure that we, along with ICE and the other counterparts that took place in helping restore the confidence in the construction industry. At that time, we were able to crack down on a lot of illegal activity and help protect our consumers at the end of the day. Where do you see that at today? I know you just stepped back in, but where do you see that today?
Well, I always say to the staff, the Department of Labor is the big HR for the private sector, and our job is to see that they succeed. I don't want people to see that even though there's a compliance arm, I don't want for contractors or businesses to see the Department of Labor as a got you. No. What we do is, especially with all these projects that are coming up with federal funding, we are working very hard to make sure that they understand what it is that they need to do as employers under the merit system principles, equal opportunity, and so many federal guidelines that they are so clueless. What I started, and the staff continue to do it to this day, is offer what we call labor clinics. And these administrators are either once a month or once every quarter. They actually are the subject matter experts, and they provide this workshop to employers or to employees or applicants. For example, Ms. Joanna Lynn, who's here with us, she has conducted so many workshops on workers' compensation. She has actually gone on site where companies have asked for her presence. The same thing, Roman Kinata has conducted so many workshops on the FLMA, wages. Greg at the same time also has conducted so many workshops with contractors on the processes and procedures if you are to bring in temporary foreign workers. So I believe in that educating our employers and continuously providing that orientation how to succeed, and especially the government regulations and processes, that they'll follow it. Yes, we have received complaints from employees who weren't paid back wages, and we do work with employers, and we do try, we do get their back wages. But then again, if there are employees who fail to follow or answer to our response, we then send them a letter, and at the same time, we actually send a letter to your office saying, this employer failed to pay an employee. Because if that employee is to get a renewed business license, and I'm so glad that the government is actually making them go through so many different government agencies to clear. And if it shows that this employer has yet to clear a back wage, then we're not going to sign off that clearance sheet for that employer's renewal.
Thank you, Ms. Connelley. I appreciate the response. I look forward. I thank you for sharing your leadership back again at the Department of Labor, and I thank the governor for the nomination, and I thank all those who provided testimony here today in your support, and I wish the Department of Labor the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Morrison. Okay, Senator Torres.
Senor Connelley Bay, sangani na ugef tungo hao, za utungo na maulakaw na pala an malati hao, met good hao, za sincera hao, zangin po direkta hao, nisita on hasu hafay problema si abogado Walsh, as sangani ham na gwa ino na klaseng problema with otro na klase na empleo. Utungo ugef tungo na maulakaw na pala za sino na you can make things right. I'm lost for words. I'm just looking at you, and I'm looking at my dinansi na zatana. It just slips my mind. But what I wanted to say is, there are strong leaders in our community that are needed right now, and most especially, a lot of the points were brought up about opportunities. Not only creating opportunities, but not losing opportunities with federal programs and monies. But tanat maulik, tanat gof maulik todo, ang igwa problema, ta spiad sa tanat maulik. So, ino na klaseng palaan hao. Usiente ino za uhongi na maulik hao para departamento za para todos empleado. Gweno siya. Si Diyos masi.
Thank you. Senator Espada.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Connelley, good morning.
Morning.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
I get a lot of input from the community on various issues, various subjects. Your nomination was one of them. I'll be very frank, the overwhelming majority of people speak very highly of your capabilities and all that you've done, and where they believe you belong, and they really believe you belong at the Department of Labor. I know you personally. I've seen you in action. I've worked with you when I used to be a senator prior to this term. I know that my mother speaks very highly of you. I believe you served with her in a previous cabinet as well, and I appreciated that input. There have been, however, a few comments, and again, this is just going to have to be, it's an open hearing, so we're going to have to put it out there, that there were some concerns about you by a few people, right? And so I have to at least bring it up. And it's definitely displayed right here in the packet that was submitted to us. You are an owner of Pacific Human Resources Services. You're at least a part owner in that. Do you foresee that there would be any conflict between your service in the government and your ownership interests in a company that basically does human resource services?
My answer is no. I was invited and I started PHRS 18 years ago. Before accepting a board position and before accepting the Director of Labor's position, I asked legal counsel then, who is now Judge Barcinas, and his response to me is nothing prohibits you from being a board or being, as long as you do not involve, you recuse yourself whenever there's any discussion. And someone asked me the same thing. And one thing about me is, as Mary said, I'm a very simple person. I'm a very simple person, and my values are very basic. If anything my mother taught me is you must be honest, you must trust, and you must respect. Now, someone challenged me and said, come on, Maria, surely there's something that if anything is discussed at the Department of Labor, you think about PHRS. I want to say the same thing about faith, or even you, all of you. When you look at something, you may desire something, but do you act it? Do you know what I mean? No, and my staff know, because the first thing I did when I came to the Department of Labor, because keep in mind that I also had my own business aside from PHRS. I went to PHRS, I resigned from the business, and I had my own business, and it's interesting nobody has ever brought it up. Connelley Enterprise. And I ran it for several years. When I got to the Department of Labor, I listed down all the businesses that I served then at that time. And I told the staff, anything coming from that organization, I do not want to be involved. Okay? So, is PHRS going to gain anything from me? I don't think so. Because I have been a public servant for 50 years. I've worked for the federal government, and I believe my credibility speaks for itself.
I appreciate that answer. I really do. And you're right. It does come down to the faith, and we are all tested at times in terms of which way to go. There is a little bit of self-interest you always think about, but then ultimately, when it comes down to a little bit of soul-searching, you make the right decision in favor of what you really believe to be in the best interest of who you serve. And in this capacity, of course, it would be the public, and it would be for the betterment, and you've proven that time and time again. Another issue I do need to bring up, and again, I have no actual data or anything else, but again, I'm just putting it out there because for me, 99% of the people who I spoke to definitely support you, and that's an overwhelming vote of confidence in you. But again, for that 1%, for who have some kind of issue, I would say, one of the issues that was brought to my attention, right, and was that I believe that you did some work down at the Naval Shipyard at one time, or I think prior to this this position. Is that true?
Yes. When I left the Guam Department of Labor in 2010, I became an employee of the Guam Shipyard from January 2011 to October 2013. I was the Vice President of Workforce Development
Okay.
at the Guam Shipyard.
One of the comments that came my way was that, well, first of all, I know that there's been a transition of the naval shipyard from one company to another. During that transition and the scaling down of the former company, that the local hires were let go before the contract workers from off island. And the concern was that, well, the question to me was, why did she do that? And I don't know if that's even true or and whatnot. But could you just at least comment on that, please?
Mr. Walks, is that his name? It's true that there's a litigation on this case.
Oh, there is?
There is.
Okay.
And I would prefer, I would prefer not to discuss anything here.
And I understand that.
Yes.
In fact, I don't want you to discuss that if there is litigation going on. I understand the sensitivity of that nature. But I will move on past that. What I would like to say, though, again, after speaking to many people that I respect about your nomination, I think we're all excited that you're back at the Department of Labor. I believe there's a lot of things that you do know and can contribute to in terms of development. I guess another question I do have for you as Director of Labor, and I'm going to basically call you Madam Director at this point. We know that one of the problem areas for our island is the in-migration of people from other islands. And we know that there are many who do not have the skills necessary or perhaps don't even know about the resources that the Department of Labor may provide in terms of job opportunities. In your assessment, I'm sure you've thought about it, how do we help these people move forward?
Jay came and testified in the Center for Micronesian Empowerment. I was actually, when I left labor, I accepted the request to be chair of the Center for Micronesian Empowerment. CME has been assisting the people from FSM, and with that, CME is also with that model. CME, we're trying to implement that model here. I know that the regional, when Jay mentioned about the regional Workforce Development Council in the region, that one of the vision that was, or the 5-year strategic plan that was put together several years ago, is to actually have a one-stop career center at these different areas throughout FSM. And I am, and how do we help them? We help them by setting up these one-stop career centers in those islands, helping them to set up their training centers, or at least helping them how can they use their federal dollars coming from the Department of Education to use that piece to for workforce development. The Regional Workforce Development Council consists of the people who are receiving federal grants through the Department of Education or even to other federal agencies as far as workforce development. I am glad I'm back because we are reviving the RWDC. It went dormant when I left, so the contacts with the representatives from the Marshall Islands, from FSM Palau, or even CNMI, they're excited to see me back, and it's just a matter of pulling the partners together and engaging them. I do know that the Micronesian chief executives are planning to have a meeting sometime in April or May, but I'm also glad to know that even the legislature, the Association of Pacific Island Legislature, I remember in the late 90s I spoke to them about a regional collaboration of apprenticeship. So they're all excited, and that vision is still on. It is not dead. Jay has been able to keep it going during my absence, but now that I'm back at labor and the partners in the region are aware of my presence, we're engaging, and we're looking forward to helping each other, and that's what it's all about.
Ms. Connelley, I look forward to casting my vote in your favor. Thank you very much.
Thank Thank you, Senator Espadon, and thank you, Senators, for all your questions and your participation. Director Connelley, you served as Director of Department of Labor from 2004 to 2010.
Correct.
And so going back to the Department of Labor, as your oversight chair, I certainly appreciate your willingness to accept Governor Calvo's appointment. And your comments also resonate with me, where you said you don't need this job, but you want this job because you believe that it could be an opportunity to develop a workforce that we need to prepare ourselves for the impending military buildup. But also, we talk a lot about sustaining that military buildup with the local hires after the H-2s come in and then they have to go. So you certainly, notwithstanding Governor Calvo's vision, you have your own vision. And it's nice when your vision and your leadership dovetails with the administration's vision and the administration's leadership in order to do what's necessary at your department. I recall, and you said something regarding conflicts of interest. You said, recuse yourself from any discussion. And I want to say to the committee here that in the initial meetings with the WIA board and the Workforce Investment Board, when we reviewed the conflicts of interest statement, before it was recuse yourself from voting. But you were very clear that that statement be revised to say recuse yourself from any discussion. And that's, people need to understand that if there's a conflict of interest, and we understand that here in the legislature, you just don't recuse yourself from voting, but up until the time of voting, you're doing everything other than voting. And so from that perspective, it's right. Ethically, you recuse yourself from any discussion from the very beginning. And so, notwithstanding your private interests and your business interests, your ethics and your reputation precede you, so that I'm confident that you'll be able to separate yourself from any desired outcomes. And you have a staff there that's a strong staff. Some of them 36 years, when Ms. Cruz 36 years, but there's longevity in that department. And it's your rank and file employees that I'd like you to continue to look back, reach down and pick up, because your kind of leadership is needed at your department, particularly with AHRD. And I'm not sure what's going to happen. I know I know the law separates Department of Labor from AHRD, and then Governor Camacho consolidated the agencies, saying that it's important and the most prudent way to go in terms of consolidating resources. And then Governor Calvo's first executive order was to separate the agencies, and then his latest executive order regarding your department was to bring your departments together.
Correct.
Notwithstanding what the law says, that it's a separate entity. So we have to, we'll resolve those issues. And I know Senator Blas expressed interest in some legislation to solidify that in statute. But we still need to get the administration's feedback to see what they want to do, because ultimately the governor is responsible for reorganizing the executive branch. Right?
Mr. Chair?
Senator Espadon?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but since you're touching on the subject, would it be appropriate to ask the director for her view on that?
Okay, we're running just a couple minutes behind, but can you just give your view on whether or not statutorily we should consolidate those two agencies?
It should be consolidated. It has to be seamless. And even now, the federal government, under the Workforce Investment and Opportunities Act, is not only looking at the funding that the Department of Labor, but looking at the other funding from other federal agencies, public health, DVR. They're all for workforce development and training for their particular clients. It's pulling them together. It's got to be a seamless career services to be given to the, to the applicants, and also to be able to serve the employers.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I thought that's where the administration was going. But then he recently appointed Senator Mabini to be director of AHRD. So if you want to say, on one hand, you want to consolidate agencies, but yet there's that director position was appointed and you have an acting director, it kind of makes it harder to bring those two agencies together.
Even though she is a director, that's her title, but the existing executive order still has AHRD reporting under labor. I see Sam as the training arm of labor, and the U.S. Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration, it's combined. And again, that training arm is for workforce development. The employment piece is the assisting employers advertise their jobs, assisting applicants, and those applicants who are not qualified for these jobs, so we don't bring in H-2B, we use SAM's money to do the training.
Okay, but over the years, it's been my contention that the employees of AHRD just cannot report to labor. They're kind of on the same, organizationally, they're on the same line. So we have to resolve those complexities.
Yes.
And so I certainly would wait to see what kind of action is necessary in order to resolve that. Okay, I'll forego some of my questions, but Jay Mera was right. The survey does show, and Senator Spadan pointed out, that there's about 99% of the people, upon hearing of your nomination, support you. And that's good news. But there's always those voices that have come forward, and those voices that express some concerns, and we always have to recognize those voices. Attorney Walsh brought up some concerns that certainly we understand you are not at liberty to discuss because of a pending litigation. But he did say something very important. He said that he doesn't know who you are. And so at this time, I'd like to publicly invite him to get to know who you are. And notwithstanding the ongoing litigation, I mean, the courts say just don't talk about that subject, but certainly doesn't mean that you can't talk about other subjects and find ways to provide some meaningful resolution to those 150 workers that were displaced with the Guam shipyard situation. It's my contention that some of those things are beyond your control, and I don't want to defend you too much because I'm already looking too biased, but certainly there's our programs within the Department of Labor, and you could probably quickly speak to that. Is there anything from within Department of Labor's programs to reach out to those 150
Yes.
displaced workers and their families? And
Yes, the Department of Labor has what they call a rapid response team, and it consists of,
and didn't they do that at the time?
Yes, they did.
Labor
Rapid
did.
Response,
Yeah.
yes. Rapid response, they responded. On a weekend, I sent out the email to Labor and asked for their assistance to engage the rapid response team when we first learned that the shipyard did not get the contract. In line with that,
Do you have a database of those 150 employees right now?
I'm sure they do. I'm sure the shipyard has that
No, your
information.
Department of Labor, now that you're...
I'm sure they do.
Because they took intake, right?
Yes.
Would it
Well,
be...
actually, the staff came down to the Guam shipyard, and that's one thing about the Department of Labor. Karen, Catalina, that was not their first time to come to the shipyard. They've been invited to the shipyard many times for other occasions.
Wouldn't it behoove you to see the statuses of those 150 displaced workers? Maybe they were able to assimilate into another job, or...
All I know is that there is an executive order on the right of first refusal, which basically means that the winning contractor will have to offer those jobs to those employees who are being displaced before they hire someone
But as
else.
the enforcement arm now, don't you think it behooves you to see if that was done?
You're talking about a year? Well,
That could be something that you guys can talk about. I would suggest maybe you can just track, if you have a database of those 150 employees, I would check with the new company to see if they did offer that right of first refusal. And I just want to know, out of the 150 employees, how many were hired? Okay?
We can
Okay,
ask the
anything else?
rapid response team.
Okay, thank you. And I'd be looking forward to your feedback. But we do go into session on March 17. So I certainly will work hard to prepare the committee report and get consensus from this committee, and hopefully get consensus to placing your confirmation on the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, and just because you're confirmed doesn't mean that we, those things that you promised and those things that you talked about doesn't mean I'm confirmed now. No, you've never been that way.
that's not
You've
me.
really been good. I support you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you for this portion of this public hearing. Thank you. The committee will consider your public hearing heard, and we'll continue to work with you if we have any issues. Okay, thank you. Okay, I think this, can I have the sign-up sheet for... Okay, I'd like to call up Mr. Greg Perez. And while the room is clearing up, let me just entertain, this is one panel, Mr. Joseph Santos, Commissioner Zenon Ballinger, and Mr. Cameron. Is Zenon still here, Joseph? He left, okay. Okay. And then we have one more appointment, Miss Ann Roth, and I'm hoping we can get to the 3 bills by 10:30, so I'm sure you're looking forward to that. Okay. Let's hear from President Cameron. Can you close the door because Oh, thank you. Okay, Mr. Cameron, go ahead.
Half-a-day Honorable Senator Rory J. Respicio, and all the other senators, Senator Morrison, Senator Blas, my sobrino, Senator Torres, and of course, Senator Espaldon, thank you for being here today. I am here to provide testimony as the Director of Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Authority, supporting the confirmation of Mr. Gregory D. Perez to the Hagåtña Restoration Redevelopment Authority Board of Commissioners. As a long-standing member of Guam's business community, Mr. Perez has been instrumental in many development projects across the island and in our region. His expertise and contribution to the Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Authority is a valued asset to the board as it moves forward in its master plan development and the revitalization and restoration of our capital city of Hagåtña. In addition, his character reflects the highest ideals we as Chamorros aspire to include respect, honor, selfless service, and family. His involvement in our island's civic community, religious, and military contribution is a reflection of his dedication and devotion to our island. Therefore, the Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Authority wholeheartedly supports and endorses Mr. Perez's appointment and confirmation to our board and looks forward to a productive relationship. Signed, Joseph Artero Cameron, Executive Director for HRA, and John T. Calvo, Chairman, Board of Commissioners, HRRA. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we need to go any further? Thank you, Mr. Cameron. The chair will recognize Mr. Perez for an opportunity to address the committee on your appointment.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to you and to the members of this committee. I appreciate the opportunity to come here and a request for your support in the confirmation of this position. What I find exciting is that the HRRA proposes to rebuild or restore the old Hagåtña that our parents grew up in, and at the same time promises to build the new, if you will, the new city of Hagåtña for the future generations. I find that very exciting, and I would like to be able to work and participate with that group. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And before I ask senators if they have any comments, I just want to give President Cameron an opportunity to say that Hagåtña Redevelopment and Restoration Authority, in moving the Hagåtña Master Plan forward, we'll have an opportunity to address all senators in this kind of forum. It'll be televised so that the public will also get the same update with respect to what's happening with that plan and how we're moving to construct the museum, the old legislature building, and other landmarks throughout the area.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman, because you are a voting member also by law on the Board of Commissioners for the Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Authority. And we look forward to your sage advice and your input, your continued input, and in making sure that the 14 other senators who sit in the legislature as well as the general public is well advised. Thank you for your participation.
Okay, thank you. Senators, anything? Okay. Okay. Senator Torres.
Mr. Perez, I just want to, first of all, acknowledge for the audience that we are related, so that I know you personally. But I also recognize that you come from a legacy of visionaries, people who built our island, people who built planned communities such as Perezville, and many of the foresight that your father had in developing those things were long-standing and were well ahead of their time. And, you know, it is my wish that, I believe that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And my wish for you is that when we when we look at the Hagåtña Redevelopment Authority, that we actually come up with those sorts of visions that are long-standing that will not only improve the quality of life for the Chamorro people and the Guamanians, but make Guam a true destination that is world-class. And there are many examples of that, throughout the U.S., but I certainly support your nomination. I think that you have the very fabric and the vision within you to continue with this project and to take it to greater heights. So congratulations on your nomination, and you have my support.
Thank you, Senator. And if I may, we all of us here come from parents and grandparents that had the foresight to develop Guam, and hopefully our goal is to continue with that legacy. This is very exciting. Can you imagine building the city of Hagåtña that would rival any capital city, not just in the mainland, but also in our region? That is very exciting. And if I may, being Chamorro month, si Diyos masi ni konfiansa mizo hugagago iboton mizo pwede sinon confit mazo gini na board si pamahat sa i antigo na Hagåtña sa pamahat sa nuevo na Hagåtña para minaulik todo tihita lo para ifamagonta dan ifamagon niya giman mamela na tempo pues si Diyos masi da pwede na perba i maponta zo ni i gobyerno pwede man magufam zo niya no si Diyos masi.
Senator.
Mr. Perez and Dr. I just wanted to also add my sincere congratulations in terms of not only your appointment, but most especially wanting to serve in this particular capacity. You mentioned that you would like to see the new Hagåtña, and it brought back memories of when Speaker Tony Umpinko came out with the initial idea of creating the Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Authority. It's to be able to ensure that we revive the capital city of Guam, but just as importantly, restore the history that has been an integral part of this entire island community. So that restoration component, I think, was a tremendous aspect of his focus, and I certainly hope that you will continue to look at that in terms of the overall redevelopment of Hagåtña, because really this should be an extremely lively center of activities over the course of, upon the, I don't want to say conclusion, but over the course of the next many years in terms of being able to redevelop Hagåtña and restore some of these other facilities and ensure that our people look at Hagåtña as the capital city of Guam and not necessarily as the capital that they drive by occasionally. So I really appreciate you leaning forward, and Governor Calvo, I commend him for his nomination and appointment of yourself, because not only do you bring business perspective, not only do you bring the historical perspective in terms of understanding what has transpired in terms of Guam's history, but just as importantly, you bring the military component. And I say that with all sincerity because there are several monuments that the good chair has been able to contribute towards in terms of recognizing our heroes and recognizing our military personnel within Skinner's Plaza. And I certainly hope that particular aspect will continue to be a major part of the overall presentation of Hagåtña. So you also bring in that perspective in terms of recognizing and memorializing our heroes who have served one time or another. So I want to thank you very much, and you most definitely have my support. Thank
you very much. Okay, thank you again, Mr. Perez, for they're nodding in agreement, so that tells me I could move forward and that there won't be any opposition. Thank you again for accepting the governor's appointment. I look forward to serving with you on the HRA board, and hopefully you can come back at 2 p.m. today so we can get a status update and have a public hearing on the bill that would deal with the Manuel Guerrero building, Governor Guerrero building, and the best thing to do for that. So, okay. We'll work hard to get your confirmation, your committee report done, and have your confirmation on the session agenda. Thank you. The next appointment is really a reappointment of the appointment of Ann Roth to serve as a member of the Guam Environmental Protection Agency. And this gives me an opportunity and gives my committee an opportunity to thank you for your continuing service at the Environmental Protection Agency Board. Okay, and good morning.
Hey, there we go. My name is Anne Marie Roth. This is my third time before the senators, before the legislature, for confirmation on the EPA board. I've been there, I believe, 5 years. I don't know. Time escapes me. I'm retired. I retired as a financial advisor after about 30 plus years. But I'm serving on the EPA board, not in that capacity. I guess I'd say I try to bring common sense to it. Work through the different projects. As you know, most of the funding, practically all the funding, is from federal funds. The staff is excellent, understaffed. They are definitely need a few more positions, particularly a chief engineer position. Unfortunately, it's the pay is not competitive with what the private sector offers. But the board tries to work through the different problems, oversee, make sure that a lot of the programs are brought into alignment with the U.S. EPA. And there's a couple more issues that we need to work on, obviously. So I'm just asking for your support.
Thank you, and this is one of the most difficult boards to serve in, the EPA board, because you deal with notice of violations, and as you said,
Right.
you deal with compliance of federal grants and also all of these regulatory issues. So this is your third time here.
Yes.
And I've hopefully your experiences here have been good.
Oh, yes, definitely, no problem.
Okay, having said that, your confirmation has been publicly heard, and if there's no comments or concerns from my colleagues and our committee members, we'll certainly
Thank
look
you.
forward to moving forward on confirming you.
Thank you.
This just satisfies the public hearing requirement, and there was no one who signed up to testify regarding your appointment and your administrator, or you're the boss. So the administrator of EPA, you would like to, Mr. Perez, okay, please come forward. Did you sign up? I'll sign you in again. Yeah.
If I may,
I don't know what he's going to say, so let's wait. He's smiling.
I'll be brief, but I know Ms. Roth while she was at the Bank of Guam. I know her to be a professional, and I'm sure she'll carry that work ethic and planning and process into EPA again for everybody's benefit. So thank you
you so
Mrs.
much.
Wasi. And if I may, back to the Hagåtña Restoration, being a matrilineal society, I'm sure our aunts will be consulted in everything. All the women who've been our guiding light over the years have a say, and we're gonna take that. We're gonna collect that. Okay, thank you.
Oh, good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you again, Ms. Roth. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we did receive a written testimony from the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands Department of Labor, Office of Secretary, from Edith De Leon Guerrero in support of Maria Connelley's appointment. Okay. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to call up Maria. It's just you? Okay, that's all we need. The director of the Guam Election Commission, and as she's making her way to the table here, I'd like to announce that we're going to reconvene on the matters of Bill number 23-33, 24-33, and 25-33. As we had this hearing last month, the committee recessed on these three bills, wanting to give the Guam Election Commission an opportunity, and even the Mayor's Council. And I do believe I have I do have written testimony from Angel Sablan, who is the executive director of the Mayor's Council of Guam. So let me just, since it's a recess on these three bills, let me just quickly recognize Senator Torres to give an overview of these three bills and maybe an update as to what happened from the last time we had this hearing till today. Senator Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first bill, Bill number 2333, proposes that Guam adopts a system for online voter registration. We recognize that online voter registration is a growing national trend, and studies have shown that it saves taxpayer dollars increases the accuracy of voter rolls, and provides a convenient option for citizens who wish to register to vote. And in order to make the online voter registration viable, we have to repeal certain requirements that I believe are antiquated with regard to multiple forms of identification from persons registering to vote, specifically requiring a passport or an original birth certificate. And statistics have shown, and in studies throughout the nation, that many of these registration requirements are considered to be onerous and were originally designed to exclude citizens of color and low-income citizens from casting a ballot, and that in our diverse society we have to address this issue. My second legislation proposes that Guam permit young voters to pre-register at age 16 and automatically be added to voter rolls when they turn age 18. And what we're doing here is targeting a demographic that of 18 to 20-year-olds that have come out in low numbers of any age group in our voting demographic. The third bill that I introduce aims to increase voter registration rates by requiring the Department of Revenue and Taxation to affirmatively offer voter registration opportunities whenever residents obtain or renew their driver's licenses or Guam ID cards. And what I'm doing with these legislations essentially is expanding the number of ways to register so that we can encourage more voter participation among our population. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Let me invite the Speaker of the Youth Congress, Larry. Yeah. Let me ask him to, you can stay though, let me ask him to give a testimony. You may file on all three bills at the same time since they are interrelated.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the committee for holding this hearing. Good morning. Thank you, Senator Mary Torres, for introducing Bills 23-33, 24-33, which I believe, according to the legislature website, Senator Frank again has also co-sponsored, and Bill 25-33. I very much appreciate the effort made to ensure that our democracy is held in high regard. Disillusionment with the government often begins at a young age. They often feel that the youth decisions are made without their input, but definitely feel empowered when their word is even considered, as was the case with the Chamorro Month festivities in the school this past week. And I want to thank Senator Morrison for taking notice in the issue. Bill 24-33, which allows for pre-registration for those who meet the current requirements and are at least 16 years old, is a great way to reach out to those who may start to feel some type of disdain for the government process. I know that the Youth Congress in of itself is full of individuals who I'm sure would take more than full advantage of this opportunity. I also think that the intent behind Bill 25-33, which would allow the Department of Revenue and Tax to ask individuals if they wish to register while they renew their driver's license, is great. It's also a great way to capture that youth audience who are often excited to pick up their driver's license, and if Bill 24-33 is enacted, would allow them to pre-register. It's also beneficial for those that may wish to go off island to pursue higher education and will not reach 18 years of age but would still like to participate in our island's democratic process through absentee ballots. And lastly, with Bill 23-33, which allows for the online voter registry, I'm sure it would allow for swifter registration and greater involvement in the democratic process. My only concern with Bill 23-33 is not in of itself, but with our online infrastructure in general. We live in a very technologically savvy age, and it's been affirmed in past legislatures as well with Public Law 32-037, which created the Guam Public Notice website, which, to the best of my knowledge, is not yet active, or at the very least, not very accessible to the people of Guam. And we do intend to create another website for use by the public for their benefit. According to Public Law 32-037, the website should have been active in December of 2013, 180 days after enactment. The website's concept is simple. I think a lot more simpler than the voter registration online would be. And it's important because although such notices are made in print, a lot of youth especially are going through technology to digest news and get more information about the government. I understand that the maintenance of the two websites by law would fall under two different entities, the Department of Administration and the Guam Election Commission. But I do believe that the government of Guam as a whole should first make good on its obligations to the people of Guam before such time that we continue to add to our online presence. Again, I have to thank Senator Morrison for the push of the Office of Technology, and I hope that we are able to reach our fullest potential as we push for a better online presence to serve the people of Guam. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Youth Speaker. Thank you. You're welcome to stay. No, you can. Yeah, you're welcome to stay and participate as we hear from Ms. Pangilinan and the feedback that we're going to get from the Guam Election Commission. And feel free to jump in anytime.
Hafade, Guahu si Miriam Pangilinan, Director di Commission Election Guahan. Ko malago haun sa bay pula taku gifinut sa moro.
Ungan.
Beitagi.
Por favor.
Senator, you're okay? You have it in English in front of you. Si Zeus masi para isuputan mizu, zantodu iyan at zudan mizu. I Commission Election Guahan, gi meeting niya, gi dia 19, ma todo siya, ma sangani zu para benahano magi I mensahin I abogado para I bills numbered 23, 24 and 25. Este siya na bills, hafa bills kifino. Priniponi.
Lai Priniponi.
Yeah, este siya na Priniponi, Lai Priniponi, inafefekta I hafa bidan mamamigi komisyon. Para ben not siguro na na honesto za claro na eleksyon za para po te konsigi na para mas megay man bobota za mas megay man mafatugi sa imbutasyon. Guahasya no guahasya man didi na konsiderasyon pa ben gagaw hamzu. Sa paggu esti siya na Priniponi sempre inajuda komisyon na para mas imanhobin siya I 18 para 25 años sempre mas inajuda na po fanhuzong. I komisyon no masupopoti esti na Priniponin lai. Pues este pagu besangan hafa siya I tres na Priniponin lai hafa siya ma rekomenda. Gifinet na I Priniponin lai 23. Este ansinya ma nadanya na Paraguaha no testigo na an zangin mandagi I mismo prójimo sempre no sinya makoni paikoti za este pagu I an zangin man ti man magahit na masanga na para sempre man 18 antes de mamala na eleksyon. I Priniponin lai 24 este pagu I abogado sa mga anyam na zangin 16 años I prohimu ni mafumitma I papit hafa sinya patay mano pata apreba na honesto na tao and esta pagu 18 años. Zangin taspia empenyo ta famaulik esti za sempre maulik na Priniponin lai. Pagu I 25 tana siguro ha na manadanya loki iling I mensahe na an mangagi an pofan man register na siguro na taza sinya man register and esta mahutsum I registration. Zantatlu zangin entry I primary zani general na siguro na taza sinya man matrasferi ginin unseng para 8. Pues esta no edza pagu za ikata ni inai hamzu dumadanya za ni mensahe gini abogado mami gi commission election gini gizagwan si Zeus maasi zangin hafa sinya malago mu pabe opi pagu esta listuhan lo sinya ti todo sinya opi.
Si Zeus maasi señora Jesus Masi. Pues y Lai Priniponi 24 dolan 33. Ilekmon, it's hard for to hold a 16-year-old accountable when they're only 16 and they're not 18 yet. Is that my?
Actually, it's pretty clear that the perjury would only be enforceable at the time the person signs.
Correct. And so I was asking if you can go back and see if maybe the sponsor will agree, then to have it be countersigned by the parent or legal guardian. I think that'll satisfy that, right?
Yeah, and I just want to point out that there are at least 16 states that already have this type of thing, and it's growing. And these are states that are also very large states. So there are mechanisms in place, certainly, and your concern is valid. And those things I've already researched and seen, because it is an effective program, and it's widely practiced, and so we'll just incorporate those best practices into this. But si Jesus Maasi for that comment on the registration.
We just jumped to the more.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank for your testimony. Spencer Zusa Majama Finusumoro. Is that right? Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure. I appreciate the author's intent with trying to advance the level of voter participation through online participation, and I'm not sure if there's notices or were sent to seek representation from the Office of Technology and their representation and providing some input, as we know that we established that office to address any IT initiatives that will be going forward throughout the government, especially within the line agencies. So if I could make that request, Mr. Chair, that maybe we could get some input from the Office of Technology representatives and see, who knows, maybe they may have an angle as far as the IT side of it, and as far as cyber activity and what that may take place on with such a process.
Okay. We'll do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Okay, Senator Agan.
In terms of Ms. Pangilinan, thank you very much for your testimony this morning, and thank you very much, Mr. Akara, Mr. Speaker of the Youth Congress. Just a quick question in regards to the implementation of this legislation. I know that right now, during the course of your open registration process, anyone that will realize the age of 18 upon the date of the election is given that opportunity to register. So what we're doing, or what this particular proposal, the way I look at it, is it would open that registration timeline to anyone who's 16 plus who will turn the age of 18 by the next election, whether it be the primary election or whether it be the general election. So would this particular provision, I was listening intently to your comments, and you're saying, yes, it can be implemented, but are you going to experience any challenges or in extending the timeline and allowing those who are, let's say, allowing individuals to register 2 years out from the date of the election?
Go sounds pabe quantus tatlu when si Senator Torres sa gua habwenti sinadanya na sinya mas maulik na programa. So hungan edzu probleman mom edzu insasangani sinya ha gua problema put enau lo zangin taspian penyu tana taspian penyu tafat maulik za bwenti hungan sinya.
Ay lo zangin ata ni sistema palco. Sinya man register tauta. San caso antes de un hutsu mi tiempo no para registration. Sinya man register tauta but until the registration deadline, just immediately preceding the election. So anytime, as long as that individual, isn't that the case, or do you have designated registration open timelines?
no. We begin to register immediately after every election.
Yeah.
And we begin to transfer, except after the primary. So if we take the calculation, it would be, a 16-year-old can definitely register right after an election before the primary, possibly. And so we're allowed to do that now by law. That's part of our mandate, and I think the only what we've experienced is maybe the 17-year-old or the high school senior. That's what we're looking at. That's what we've seen in the past. Not very many of them, but we've seen those.
I think it's always, and I commend the sponsor, Senator Torres, for initiating a proposal like this, because it's always trying to involve at the earliest stages of their eligibility the younger generation in the process. Because one thing that last summer I was very fortunate to have two very aggressive young gentlemen who came in as summer interns. And when they started to understand the process here in the legislature, and they understood how laws were passed and made, and how proposals were prepared, they appreciated really the legislative aspect and the legislative branch of the government, and they started to understand the political arena that much more. And it really encouraged them to go to the election commission, register, and to vote in that upcoming election. But what was even more interesting is that they reached out to their friends, and they encouraged, I believe it was 6 or 7 other of their colleagues and their peers to go directly to the Guam Election Commission and register. And that's the sense of ownership that we want to instill in some of our younger generation, so that they can start off at a young age, at the earliest time possible, participate in the political process, have that semblance of appreciation that not only can they actively participate and vote, but yes, their vote counts. Their vote will count when in fact they go to the polls and exercise that right. So I certainly hope that you will continue your dialogue, like you said a little earlier with Senator Torres, and see if we can realize the passage of these particular proposals, because I think it sends a very good message to our impending eligible voting population, is that the process is going to be, a process will be expanded to allow you to register early. A process will be expanded to allow you to participate in the process. And then hopefully, come election timeline, you'll be able to exercise your right to vote. So I appreciate your participation and your comments this morning. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, at this point, I want to make known of a practice that has been going on for years by, I've never met the man, but his name is Professor Armstrong from Guam Community College. I don't even know what class he teaches, but every semester, at the beginning of the semester, students from his class come in to Guam Election Commission to register. And it doesn't stop there. For every additional friend or person that comes in to register, the student gets extra points in that class for bringing the student in. And I saw that I never met the man, but I saw that he retired from the newspaper. So, kudos to him, and hopefully other people at the Guam Community College and the University of Guam follow suit.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to comment also on the voter registration. One of the facilities of it is when you're already, if you already have a driver's license or a Guam ID, that becomes your justification. So it's this issue of justifying who you are and all of that. The record is already established, for you. So it's a very easy process, and in terms of verifying that these people are really who they are, and it's easy for them to just go online. There are no errors because they're entering it themselves and all that. But what I also want to point out is there does exist a mechanism already for online voter registration for residents who are residing off Guam. And so the switching over from one system to another shouldn't be too hard. And I know that a lot of the material that I provided you previously was statistics for very, very large jurisdictions that included also online voting. we're looking at something very simple here. And so the task is not going to be as monumentous as some of the other jurisdictions that we're looking at. But I also want to point out that, while the universities and many of the young voter groups, including the Vote Smart, have done an incredible job of reaching out, sometimes it's those requirements that are barriers. Because I've also had students say to me, oh yes, the registrar is up at my school, but I don't have a passport. It's in the safe deposit box. My mom doesn't trust me to hold it. I don't have an original birth certificate. So although the intent is there, the hurdles are large for them. And that's what I'm addressing. How do you make it so that at the ease of their thing, with their own desire to become a civically responsible person, they can just go online and do it themselves like that. And it saves you a ton of money, Senora, So tu necessita papit, tu necessita Xerox y papit, tu necessita fitma, tu necessita otro na tata po arregla y papitsia. So there's a lot of savings in that way. But I also want to address the Speaker of the Youth Congress. Yes, Larry, thank you very much for taking the opportunity. The question is always, have we done something right with prior legislation before we add another burden to the government? My point on this is what we're looking at is perhaps not such an onerous system that we have to build for security or just to devise the registration process. As I mentioned before, we do have it in some fashion where you just download, complete, and upload. It could be as easy as that. But what we have to do, though, is we have to move on. If we at least get people responsible, all the people, young people, thinking that they're part of this process, and this is a great way to engage them, that they're part of this process, then they can push to get the government to be a little more responsible and get the government to own up to a lot of their representations. But sometimes the pressure comes from the outside in, right? So we can be policymakers, but a lot of times what gets us beyond that is the will of the people. And what I'm trying to do is reach that demographic that right now doesn't believe perhaps in government officials, don't feel that they can make a difference, and maybe who would never aspire to be leaders because they're put off by what they see. So the only way to grow something is to include, and that's what this measure is about. So the cost, the actual cost should not be measured by the national standards because we are a smaller demographics, and we can certainly also avail ourselves of certain grants such as the Help America Vote Act grants and other resources that are designed to bring electoral systems up to speed and modernized. So, Senora, I'll definitely work with you on what I've found in looking at best practices in other jurisdictions. Okay, Sus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Torres. I want to also echo my appreciation to both of you, and particularly to the Guam Election Commission in this case. Your presentation with respect to these three bills, is a significant departure from what the Election Commission has done in the past, where they would just say whatever the policy is, we'll implement it. And I think since you became a director of the Guam Election Commission, and together with your board, you've really been helpful in this whole idea of reforming how we do elections here on Guam. And you're there at the perfect time when you are required by law to do all these election reform initiatives. And I believe we've come a very long way since the past elections, particularly the 2010 election, which caused us to really focus and analyze whether or not this process provides for legitimacy in terms of people who are eligible to vote, but more importantly to make sure that every vote that's cast is treated as currency, and that you balance out, as any bank would, those ballots and things. And I want to say under your leadership, that Guam Election Commission has come a very long way and makes it ripe for these three initiatives that Senator Torres would like to have us consider to make it so that people don't have a hard time registering. As you know, this is there's a national movement to remove barriers on getting people to the polls, and one of that barrier is, providing for two identifications, and Senator Torres pointed all those things out. I also want to say I appreciate you having your legal counsel, Attorney Cook, really look at these three bills and offer some suggestions on how we can make things clearer. Senator Torres did a great job in the presentation of these bills, and I think it was prudent that we waited for the Guam Election Commission's feedback. We also have the feedback from the Mayor's Council. Can I see him? And the Mayor's Council of Guam, Mr. Sablan, is the Executive Director. He writes that they're also concerned because in some of the municipal elections, those elections are decided by few votes. In the case of the legislature's race, there was one election where number 15 and 16 was decided by 3 votes. And so in this case, they're asking that while they agree with the provision for online voter registration, they're offering an amendment to include the street name and number, municipality or lot number, and municipality where the person resides on Guam. So I'll work with the sponsor and with this committee to see if that's acceptable, which I think it really should be considered. On the matter of Bill 23-33, your attorney and you suggest that there be a declaration under penalty of perjury that the person is a United States citizen who will be at least 18 years of age. I think we'll also work with sponsor, and hopefully she's in agreement to including that. Bill 24, your legal counsel recommends that because a person is 16, how do you legally bind them, right? So Senator Torres pointed out that that's done in 16 other jurisdictions, and so there's precedence there. I want to say on your feedback on Bill 25-33, something I particularly I'm appreciative of, because there are timelines of when there's voter registration, and you just can't do same-day voting. So I think the sponsor hopefully will be amenable to making sure that this, if someone gets a driver's license at a time where registration is closed, certainly they shouldn't be able to register to vote. So we have to make sure that those things are consistent. The other thing I wanted to two more things I wanted to publicly bring out in this forum is when Senator Torres first introduced this bill, and given how the 15-16 race and the mayoral races are municipalities, we want to make sure that there's no concerted or organized effort to go and identify 500 people can swing an election. Even in a gubernatorial race, it's the case when Senator Uggan was running in that election. I want us to consider imposing criminal penalties for anyone convicted of organizing a fraudulent voter registration drive. So it's not just the penalty of perjury that the individual who goes online to sign that says I'm a United States resident, U.S. citizen, I'm a resident of Guam for 30 days or more, and so I should be eligible to vote. But there could be the case where you might have a ringleader going and identifying pockets of people, bringing them to the public library or having internet access and just registering all these people. My concern is, although they're going to sign under penalty of perjury, and if it's determined that they perjured themselves but the election is over, what's the remedy? What's the remedy when someone lost an election by 3 votes? What's the remedy when, even if you identify 100 people that may have lied in how they registered, how do you go in and determine who those 100 people voted for? And so I think we always want to increase voter confidence, right, and remove any cloud. So I would work with you more to not only have that person who be prosecuted under penalty of perjury, but also someone who organized a group of people, one or more, to go and do that kind of activity. Right?
Yeah, and if I may just comment on that, there is substantial literature on studies with regard to voter fraud done by the Department of Justice, the Pew Institute, among others. And what we found largely, there are laws in place, and there are definitely attestations that people sign under penalty of perjury. that exist, right now. But the incidence of voter fraud is extremely rare, extremely rare. In all the cases that have been investigated nationwide, they find an average of 8 throughout the nation per year, which is almost non-existent. But what I also want to point out is although people have this idea that you're anonymous when you go online and register, there is in fact a verification that the director has to put in place. So you are not automatically registered. You are only registered when the director ascertains that you are in fact a valid person and your registration is true and correct. And that is the only way you get on the roll. So, this notion that people can have a free-for-all, I think is maybe exaggerated in the public's opinion. But there are already in place many laws, federal laws as well, about voter fraud. And also the director has a great responsibility of verifying voters before they get on the rolls. So.
And it's good that we openly talk about these things,
Yes.
because a lot of people are following this conversation.
Yes.
But aren't there penalties imposed for the registrar?
Yes.
Currently, so
Yes, there
if
are.
there are. So my point is, if someone registers people fraudulently, there can be penalties taken against them. I want for us to consider criminal penalties for anyone caught organizing these kinds of. It's just something to consider, because right now someone can organize 100 people to go and register, and I know you still have to verify that, but just as an added safety net, if someone knows that as an organizer of this effort, they can be in trouble, I think that will really have a chilling effect in any of those kinds of movements, right?
Part of the existing law, people are asking us what's keeping the commission busy. Well, part of the existing law says that we have after the purging, which we're doing as we speak, we clean it out, we put in the system those people that have registered after the election to maybe June. We have to send this list out, the voter registry list. We have to send it out to the mayors every July of every odd year. So every time I meet a mayor out there, I say, you're going to get your list. Make sure you take a look at it and come back with me if you find any errors. So, as it sounds very simplistic, but in reality, I get calls from mayors saying, hey, check this list out. And in fact, some of the mayors have already requested that even with the list we had for the 2014 general election, they've asked for it to start looking at it. And the purge list. Are these people still here? Why are they being purged? It's a bunch of money we spent in going through the purge process, but it is a good system. Maybe there is a better system, but right now that's what we have.
If someone's able to register online and they just, under penalty of perjury, say I'm an eligible voter, it's possible that you may never see that person right face to face under this.
Even currently.
I know, even currently, but I'm saying then they would go up to on the election day, they would present their ID and then they would vote, but you would never be able to ascertain if they were an eligible voter, with the exception of the penalty of perjury issue. So
but I think what we have to do, there's many scenarios that you can pose, but let's be reasonable about this. What non-U.S. citizen would fraudulently, under the threat of a third-degree felony and deportation, put themselves out to fraudulently register to vote, to cast one vote? And that's really the point that we have to go when we talk about all of this. The risk that someone would take to cast one vote is a risk too great for many people, especially a person who is a non-U.S. citizen that runs the risk of being prosecuted under a third-degree felony and being deported. So that's really what we're talking about. If you're talking about people rigging the system, it's doubtful that one person can can register their pets or whatever. It just doesn't happen.
No,
because-
I'm not
yeah.
saying. I mean, they would be registering human beings. They would be not. They wouldn't be ever able to register a fictitious person because that person will have to present themselves on the day of the election, their identification, and vote. But I just think that there could not be an opportunity for. I mean, people canvass the villages during the election time, find pockets of people that may not be registered to vote, round them up, put them on a computer, register them, and they're all on, all saying under penalty of perjury is fine, but what happens after the election when that effort could have resulted in someone losing their seat?
And sometimes
So I'm thinking, I think we could bring more comfort to this if we just say, because in order to do that, you have to have someone organizing them to do that. So I hope you would think about going after the person or people that are going to be organized to be doing this. I mean, I'm very idealistic. I'm always want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but we've seen in past elections, I mean, 500 vote difference in a gubernatorial race where millions and millions are at stake. It's do or die in most cases. And so we think, why 500 people, you're not just talking about one vote, you're talking when you add all those one votes up, but this is, I mean, you've covered a lot of safeguards. And if we can think of more safeguards as we prepare this bill to go into session in March, I know if the community's following, they may have some ideas as well.
And what we'll do is we'll cross-reference those laws that exist with regard to voter fraud and the penalties of voter fraud, because those are contemplated in other areas, not here. And so that's one thing. But then what we also have to do is there are institutions that have actually studied this, and those sorts of scenarios do not exist.
See, a lot of it is public education too.
A lot of it is largely urban myth, and if we can just come to understand that, because what it comes down to really is, what is one individual willing to risk to cast one vote? Because one person is in this small island. Imagine if you were to go to 14 different polling precincts, you're not gonna get away with it, right?
Well, I want you to know too, I spent a lot of my time since you introduced the bill dispelling rumors or myths about what your bill would do. Some people think that this would provide for online voting. And some people think that you're going to have someone at a computer and just keep voting, but I tell them that's not the case. It's an online registration process that's vetted, and in the end, that person has to show up in person to vote. Now, along with this discussion, the sponsor, Senator Torres, also brought up the idea of streamlining the decolonization registry. Would it be possible to amend this bill to, I mean, if it's good for voter registration, I think the same should apply with people just signing under penalty of perjury by way of affidavit that they are eligible to be registered in the Chamorro registry. Would the commission support amending this bill to include that?
Like I told Sean Raimondo from the PDN, absolutely, it's a fantastic idea. One of the things that...
I've already... I have an amendment.
Yes, she does.
Well,
I was going to bring it
I'm
up
so
to him in
inspired
committee,
by
but
her. No, we talked about it, and I want to bring it out so that the public is noticed that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah.
And just so you know, just so all of us know that in the in registration for decolonization, there's only one identification, photo ID required.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that complicated, except the form is a little longer. But that's all, and it's a great idea. So to bring up the numbers.
So we want to help you out and get both of your roles complete in the event that we have a plebiscite. But I also wanted to point out, you brought up the cost in one of your comments, and I was mentioning earlier that the average cost may not apply to Guam because it's a different scenario. But and I'll just finish my statement. What they found in all the jurisdictions, almost half the states in the U.S. have adopted online voter registration. Whatever costs that they had up front, they recovered almost immediately in savings. So where one state would spend an average of 83 cents to register one voter, with online registration, 83 cents dropped to 3 cents. So the recovery, the return on investment is very quick.
May I talk to that, Senator Torres?
You're asking for more money, and
Well,
the answer
actually,
is maybe.
well, actually, what's going on is we based on what has gone on and looking at the costs, because we're such a small population base, the fixed costs to get the infrastructure in for security internet access is so much higher for us because we're not there yet. And it's the cost per vote is much higher because of the small population base, right? So with that, may I let you all know that the commission has been brainstorming as recent as last Friday, the staff, into what our dream central voter registration system will be. We have a very antiquated one, not to any one person or one committee's fault, but it's because over the years, attempts have been made to get one in place. In fact, the commission had purchased one before, but we're in the process of working it so that we can get one before 2016, hopefully.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, Senator Stallone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Pangilinan, thank you for all the information. I guess one of the central issues I need to address with you concerns the issue that the right to vote really belongs to a U.S. citizen. Right? And yes, I understand that through this process that's being proposed, all it would take would be an affidavit. Let me just ask you this. Do you foresee having to perhaps communicate with, I guess, Homeland Security, who is basically has taken over the role of immigration on this island, to verify whether that applicant is indeed a United States citizen?
We don't even do residency verification. And so once it comes to the mayoral race, it's just an attestation of whether they're from that village. As far as the U.S. citizenship goes, it would probably fall in the same process.
But that would be one of the real deviations from the existing practice right now, and migrate as we migrate into this new system. Whereas in the existing practice right now, the Election Commission does require some proof of U.S. citizenship, whether it's naturalization papers or a passport or whatnot. And I understand the arguments and all the studies that have been done that the fraud's not going to be there or it's going to be a very low incidence. But that being said, my concern is because we are a multicultural society with people coming in from so many different places of the world, it would seem to me that we need to protect the right just for the citizenship. So can you speak to that issue at all, or is it not yet ripe for discussion?
Back in right after the Help America Vote Act came into play, there was a requirement for motor vehicle DMVs to be able to communicate with Social Security Administration to validate identification. Should somebody come before DMV to register to vote and they don't have anything else, no IDs, there would be an MOU set up with Social Security Administration to validate that person's identity on a file basis. Every time somebody comes in, Social Security should be able to verify it, and all that was covered under HAVA. And that was back in about 2004. We can progress to this. That's something that I would think would be workable, where we could get. And I don't know about the access to it, but what's exciting for us right now is for the very first time since I've been executive director of Guam Election Commission, the Federal Election Assistance Commission is fully staffed. So at the board, so there's lots and lots of progress right now, immediate progress right now, since those people have been put in place. So again, because of that and other things, we've learned of a program called CERA, C-E-R-A, where people from the commission can become certified in elections registration administration. Through that process, I hope to be able to network and find out what everybody else is doing and let them know what our challenge, what our issues here. In that, you're right, people come in and go very often and very easily. So I don't have all the information, but we're looking into it.
And I appreciate your answer. And again, I just bring that to your attention because, again, I just want to make sure, regardless of all the studies, and because of the environment that we sit in terms of being the hub of in-migration from a lot of different destinations, that the right to vote belongs to the citizens, U.S. citizens, not just anybody. And again, it's something I believe that you are already mindful of, but I just want to reiterate it for to strengthen that concern. But thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else, Senator Torres?
No, but I just want to make one comment. A lot of times when we look at citizenship and we think about the U.S. and their practices, just to put a thought in your mind, I've talked a lot about fraud and urban myths and stuff, but to vote right now in the U.S., all you need is to attest. So if they don't even require you to produce hard documents, that begs the question, why are we so rigid? When their own system, federal voting system, doesn't require it. So, there's a lot of best practices and stuff that I think we should always balance and take all considerations and all fears and worries and balance it into, and as we go forward with the legislation, we'll certainly, look very carefully into the concerns and sentiments of all the population. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again for your participation. Mr. Youth Congress Speaker, you have anything else? Okay, we have a couple more minutes. Director, can you update the committee on the Board of Education election? It'd be a good opportunity and the PDN reporters listening intently. Can I tell you what the feedback I got is that the Ms. Taina Tungo's been certified and that the certificates have been signed with the exception of a couple members. Okay.
At the same meeting where the 3 bills were discussed, the Commission also certified the qualification of Ms. Rosie Taina Tungo as the next highest vote getter, garnering at least 50% of the votes that the late Albertson Augustin garnered. And so the certificate was signed and forwarded to the Guam Education Board, as well as to Ms. Rosie Taina Tungo herself. And the certificate just it's not a certificate. It's saying that you're certified that you're the next highest vote getter, and you can sit there just like the law says.
So what's the next step? Because I believe the chairman of the board was trying to get a appointment by the governor, but that appointment is not necessary pursuant to law.
That's
it's
correct.
automatic.
Yeah. The discussions with our legal counsel was that when Senator Rory Respicio was elected, a certificate was provided to you.
And I presented to the Chief Justice.
That's correct. So in this regard, it would be presented to
the chairman of the board.
Chairman of the board and whoever swears them in. That same certificate that we gave them. And I had spoken to the chairman of the Guam Education Board yesterday and given him this same information.
Okay. And as soon as you're ready with your report, surrounding the 2014 election, I will give you an opportunity to present that in a roundtable type setting so the public can continue to feel confident about the election process.
The first draft will be presented to our commission this March meeting, and we will probably have 2 drafts before we give you a final.
Okay. Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, thank you very much for your guidance, and I hope the sponsor will agree that waiting a couple weeks for your feedback is certainly going to save us a lot of time on the session floor.
And your feedback was very valuable, and thank you very much for taking the time to research it and to be so considerate. I really appreciate your effort.
I must say that you all say I'm the face to the name, but I wanted to make a comment when you mentioned about it's refreshing to see that we're not only
a departure from past practices.
Absolutely. So I want to give credit where credit is due. That was totally discussed in our commission meeting in February where she was in attendance. Yeah. And I only have one staffer here because everybody else is busy, but those guys are 10 of them are phenomenal. One night our packet for the February 19th meeting was 4 photos like this, and they went through it thoroughly, and it was great. Thank you, including our 3 bills.
Yeah. And again, for the record, if the committee will agree, I will entertain an amendment by the sponsor, Senator Torres, to provide the same process for the decolonization registry. Yes. Okay. Okay, thank you. We're recessed until 2 p.m. Senators, please come back at 2 p.m., at which time we're going to be hearing Bill. It's not here. Did you separate on another agenda? What's the bill relative to the demolition of the Manuel F. Guerrero building? Here it is. It's Bill 32-33, and it's relative to that. To be funded by the hotel occupancy tax. Okay, thank you. So we're recessed until 2 p.m. today. Thank you.